Question: do you like playing difficulties of video games that make you feel like you should be the little spoon in a relationship? Games that spank you so hard and so relentlessly that you're on the precipice of developing a new kink? Well, if the answer to that question is no, then you should never attempt what I'm about to show you, because this achievement in particular plows harder than Johnny Sins on Blue Chew. Now, just so we're all up to speed, recently I have completed one of the hardest achievements I had ever attempted in gaming, completing the Akumu difficulty in The Evil Within, a difficulty that makes it so any single point of damage will kill you instantly.
I was born with glass bones and paper skin.
However, when it comes to psychological warfare, on top of being nightmare fuel waterboarded, nothing comes close to the hard-to-the-core achievement in Dead Space 2. You're fucking kidding me! You see, normally in difficulty achievement runs, enemies are stronger, health packs come around less often, and finding ammo becomes more of a chore than searching for a Hillary Clinton email. That when I saw that I had no ammo left in all my guns, I was like, I might die here. But Dead Space 2 was cut from a different cloth. In all honesty, this game's difficulty could have been cut from Death's Cloak himself, and that's because on top of the aforementioned difficulty enhancers, people attempting to get this hard to the core achievement will only be afforded 3 saves throughout the entire 16-hour playthrough with absolutely no checkpoints. How many saves have I used? Meaning, if you died on chapter 5 and you haven't used a save yet, you go back to the beginning and get to do it all over again.
1 minute later.
Hey, welcome to the stream, everybody. We're starting a Dead Space run on the hardest difficulty. Needless to say, this achievement is not for the faint of heart, and only the strongest of mentalities will ever get it. Which also explains why only 1.4% of gamers who've ever played this game have unlocked it. But despite the overwhelming odds, I embarked into the most anxiety-inducing, claustrophobic, and intense gameplay that I can confidently say is rivaled by no other game in gore, combat, and what I'm gonna call gotcha moments, of which I will elaborate more on later. But for now, we begin our journey as anyone would in a horror game, straight jacketed to a chair with a menacing man talking down to you, even though you had just been recovered from deep space, doing the most unspeakable thing to enemy corpses to survive, with your husk of an ex-girlfriend looming over you with those dirty Channel 99 eyes and mouth. That's a joke for kids who grew up in the 90s. Now, with most horror games, typically there's a slow rise before the horror aspect really kicks in. For example, something like Resident Evil, where you enter the mansion and explore the dining room, then encounter your first enemy, and while scary for its first time, this is baby mode compared to Dead Space. You're first greeted by what anyone would assume would be the helping hand for the game, feeding you intel from a safe room and guiding you on your journey. Except this is Dead Space, not a live space. Surely nothing's gonna happen to you. Oh god. Needless to say, the introduction from dialogue to gameplay was as smooth as the blade that penetrated our dear savior, and we were on to the tutorial section of the game, the one that teaches you to run and that you'll have peaked anxiety for the rest of the playthrough. And after making our way through a few near misses, we meet up with our interviewer from earlier, who's more than happy to share a medkit with us because he decided that he didn't need it in the most grotesque way possible. Now, one thing that I would advise to anyone who wants to play the Dead Space series is to get used to the darkness, because unlike Motel 6, the lights are always off. Additionally, you should also get used to the most well-placed jump scares, dare I say so perfectly placed that it ensures that you are never comfortable during the playthrough. Why? Because f you, that's why. What am I, in an old folks home? Oh, Jesus. Whoa, why are you moving, dog? Moving on, it was time to get one of the 3 key items for survival, the Kinesis module, which allows Isaac to take objects in the environment, like spears and even limbs from fallen adversaries, and yeet them at the same velocity as a rail cannon into enemies, and sometimes pinning them into the wall, which is always satisfying to see and do. No, I do not need psychological evaluation. Then immediately following the impalement of a few necromorphs courtesy of my new toy,
What the hell is even that?
it was time to get the most iconic weapon in Dead Space and our main tool for survival for the majority of the game, the plasma cutter, from a room with a patient who had the worst timing in the history of forever to have open heart surgery. Then after making short work of the somewhat tutorial enemies, I made a prediction that would definitely not come back to bite me at all. How far do you think you'll go without dying? I'm gonna try to make it to chapter 5 or 6. Then it was time for a section where you get your third and final utility item that I will foot stomp in saying is paramount for surviving in this game, the stasis module, which slows enemies down, giving you a few added seconds to think of what you want to do next in any given situation. Oh shit. Holy no way. What? I shot it so many times! Dude, what? It's a freebie! And I guess you could say the silver lining to dying this early is you get to knock the dust and the jitters off early, or at least that's what I'm gonna tell myself. Cue the Sonic the Hedgehog music to get us back to where we were. And after getting our redemption on the necromorph that jumped me and dispatching some of the local vent crawlers, we finally get our first suit upgrade and progress to the first boss encounter, the tripod. And not the special third leg kind of guy, just the regular third leg. Now, the positive thing about the hardcore difficulty is that you have to beat the game first to unlock it, so you kind of have some insight as to where you should save the game. I very well could die right here. This boss fight is not easy. And I remember that the first time I played this game, this guy killed me, so. And I was tempted to use one here, but seeing how we were still only in chapter 1, I decided to roll the dice and just run the fight. Now, to effectively navigate this encounter, the #1 rule is stasis. Stasis, stasis, stasis. If you run out of stasis, you go get more. Rotate clockwise, shoot the stasis, repeat. The #2 rule is don't get hit by the leap attack. That's an instant kill. Luckily, I dodged the couple of leap attacks he did by a frog's nut hair and was able to remove one of his arms, making him into a bipod and no longer having the ability to do that one-hit kill jump attack. And even though I panic missed several stasis shots, and was asking to get killed, I was able to make it past this skill check unscathed. However, Dead Space decided to remind me during my short victory that there's still a lot of game to go and to never get comfortable. Now, after I changed my shorts, it was time to enter chapter 2, where we meet someone who's even more mentally unstable than Isaac, while also meeting my most hated enemy of the game, the Leaper, who are aggressively fast, can climb walls, and will end a run quicker than a blink of an eye. Now, remember a little while ago when I said things can get claustrophobic? Well, that's exactly what we come upon with this train. Just a metal tube, limited visibility, and tons of pokey death lurking for a chance at me, as well as another game-ending creature cleverly named the Exploder because of a glowing growth on its arm that, well, explodes. Placing these enemies on a list I like to call Kill It First.
Okay, let's see my to-do list.
And this little encounter is quickly followed by a segment where Isaac is suspended from a crashed cable car, forcing you to play a little tower defense game that I think I forgot to breathe during. Don't let my face fool you. Mentally, I was not okay. I got the meat sack. I swear to God, I'll use it. Guys, my heart, man. I can't. Oh my God, it's been so long. I just, Next, it was time to get acquainted with yet another new enemy whose name escapes me entirely, but for all intensive purposes, we're gonna call younglings because these enemies put up next to no fight whatsoever, and you get to kill them in mass quantities. And after spilling the blood of the questionably innocent and making my way down the most intense trash compactor, I finally decided that I had come too far to reset, and I utilized my first save. Why don't we go ahead and pop one of these itty bitty witty saves? With the best part about that save being that you get a second of relief from the perpetual feeling of your impending doom, and boy howdy does this game have a lot of impending doom. That was horribly grotesque. Now it was time for our second suit upgrade of the game with some added item slots, additional armor, and most importantly, immeasurable drip. Then we proceeded to meet up with a lady who claimed to have the cure for Isaac's mental illness. But as it turns out, she was lying, and you know the saying, if you tell a lie, you get shot with a 30mm revolving cannon. Oh God. Oh my God. And the best part about the swift justice that chick got is it's followed up with a boss fight that's mostly just shooting limbs for a few segments, but the entire encounter is just a treat and really makes you question the fact that this game is over 13 years old. Was doing my best not to talk during that whole sequence because I forgot how amazingly, how perfectly that whole sequence was designed. God, this game is so freaking good. Stands the test of time. I don't know another game that you could even say. Now, remember a while back when I said it's super useful having to beat this game at least once to unlock this difficulty because you remember things? Well, that's mostly because of PTSD, of which was triggered by this room for a couple of reasons. Reason number one, I recall there being a bunch of leapers, those really aggressive enemies that can easily end the game for you. And reason number two, a new enemy named Pregnant. Yes, that is actually the name. And the reason this enemy is so colorfully named is because should you damage the midsection and give it a tummy ache, it will birth a few dozen little creepy crawlies that will lunge onto you and make it so you can't defend yourself, or they will reinforce enemy limbs so you can't shoot them off. And if you guessed that this section gave me a bit of trouble, you would be correct. I missed all my shots. I couldn't find anything to throw. Oh, damn it, man. I was doing so good. I knew that was bad, but I thought I was going to pull it off. Like, everything was dead and the music stopped, and then I got attacked with a second wave. That's crazy. And this, unfortunately, is where I racked up my second death. However, I luckily only lost about 45 minutes of gameplay, so while it didn't feel very good in the moment, it could have been a lot worse. Cue the Sonic music, let's run it back. And this time around, I learned my lesson and decided to hit all my shots, resulting in my adversaries meeting their timely end again and allowing me to progress to a section of the game where you face an enemy that's actually really fun to fight. You see, these particular enemies are ambush predators and will peek their heads out around corners looking for the right moment to strike. Additionally, they also have reinforced skulls, so any type of penetrating projectile might get lodged in their head, which makes for a really good laugh if you catch it. Get wrecked. He's got stuck in his head. It's stuck in his head. Dude, that's hilarious. He's got his brother's claws stuck in his head. And after that very amusing segment, I finally meet Ellie, who's incredibly easy to develop an eye for. Oh, that joke's for later. And after chatting with her a bit, we make our way to a room filled with the world's most deadly fleshlights, complete with explosive finishes. Don't make me want to bust.
What do you mean by that?
At this point, after topping off our ammo and medkits at our local weapons dealer that's located right outside of a daycare, it was time for one of the most memorable moments in Dead Space 2. Remember earlier when we were taking out younglings? Well, Dead Space doesn't exactly draw a line at taking out husks of children. Actually, I'm not positive Dead Space even has a line, considering the fact that someone, somewhere, decided that babies should be mini grenades. Now, judge me if you want, but I think Grenade Babies is the perfect time to highlight one of my favorite weapons of the game, the Javelin, which also has a secondary feature to electrocute enemies after impalement, which always makes for an electrifying experience. Oh, please subscribe. It's also at this point of the game we start seeing darker complected versions of necromorphs who take more damage, deal more damage, and have way longer
Stop it. Get some help.
I also had my life flash before my eyes as I was backed into a corner by 5 grenade babies and several kids whose enthusiasm to kill me could only be the result of shotgunning cans of Monster, but somehow I managed to make it out alive. Shit. I thought that was it, guys. I'm gonna be 100% with you. I'm not gonna lie, this Javelin straight up saved me. That saved me hardcore right there. Haha, hardcore. Bro, how are you alive? I couldn't tell you, man. I think I actually got lucky. Also, it needs to be mentioned that should you plan to attempt this achievement, stomping the bodies of the crewmates laying about is an incredible practice to instill, because there's an enemy that takes the remains of unmutated humans and reanimates them, of which you can spot climbing on the stage during that fight. But if you pre-stomp the bodies, they have nothing to animate, making these encounters much more tolerable. The more you know. And with that, we come to yet another spot where we have to make a decision on whether or not to save the game. And for some reason, my memory was really foggy as to the difficulty of the next segment we were about to embark on. But after careful deliberation and my chat telling me to push through, I decided against the save and proceeded into the next altercation, a fight with a brute. And full disclosure, this fight was a piece of cake. Stasis, rip off an arm, run around the back, blow off another leg, boom. Fight completed, and we're on to chapter 7. Now, do you recall earlier in the video when I said there's some gotcha moments in the game? Well, it's finally time to elaborate on that. You see, in Dead Space, there isn't just scary monsters and dark rooms. It also has segments in the game that can end you in one swift misstep, whether it be tripwire explosives, giant torch vents, or the occasional airlock window, of which I was not prepared for. You're kidding me. And thus, I logged my third death, but there was a weird silver lining because for some reason, I only reset to chapter 7. Wait, how many saves have I used? Why did it take me back here? Yeah, so I still have 2 saves, but it only took me here? And as it turns out, Dead Space 2 was originally a 2-disc game that switched at chapter 7, ultimately giving the player a free checkpoint in the digital version of the game as long as you didn't turn the system off. So I made use of it the best I could. Cue the fast forward montage to the point where me getting my revenge on the leaper that triggered that trap, and now it was time for me to go out into space and realign some light beams. Once that was completed, it was on to a very unorthodox method of travel to meet up with Ellie. However, I don't think Space Osho would approve of it, seeing how it propelled me directly into my 4th death. You kidding me? I saw it at the last second. And I was not having a good time at this point. The challenge of this difficulty was really starting to weigh on me. But luckily, after a few nights sleep, I was ready to run it back with a clear head, and this time we did it without a single snafu, but there was really no time to breathe because after you crash land from the rocket propelled into a building, you are thrown directly into a timed survival fight where you need to defend against incoming enemies until a door opens. And this portion is especially difficult because most enemy types you've seen thus far in the game are attacking you at the same time. Freaking whack-a-mole. Oh, that was it?
The CC door on your level.
That was not bad.
Hold on.
What the? What hit me? Oh god!
Isaac, go! Go, Isaac! You can't stop them all! Go!
Oh man, sweaty Eddie, I almost died, dude. Remember though, whenever in doubt or in peril, use stasis. Now, if you're someone who's played a ton of horror games, you sort of develop a sense for rooms you're going to be taken advantage of in, and this was one of those rooms. Oh, look. My impending doom. And this room was just unnecessarily loud, scary, and filled to the brim with enemies, and to add insult to injury, the devs put a workbench in there which is used for upgrading your guns, making you stay there longer than you needed to. Well played, Dead Space devs. Well played. Then, after a quick anatomy lesson with my chat, this right here is a hemorrhoid, guys. And this is what happens when you let them get to stage 4. And making it through some really awesome life-threatening 0G hazards, it was time for my second save of the game, upgraded my suit for the 3rd time, adding some much appreciated armor and item slots. Then I proceeded directly into one of the most difficult fights of the game, the tripod nest, where the goal is to explode the room to free the ship so Isaac, Ellie, and Strauss can make their escape while also fighting off an onslaught of tripods. Now, there was definitely a few moments where I felt I was going to die, but since I was coming off of a fresh save, I wasn't too worried about it, and that allowed me to just focus on getting the job done.
In another
First
situation, I
try.
admire your persistence, Mr. Clark.
Also, somewhere along this journey, I purchased the pulse rifle. Don't really remember when, but I cannot recommend this weapon. It kind of sucks and I barely used it. And after successfully defeating the tripods, and despite a few setbacks, all of which never felt very good, we were actually making decent time and my spirits were pretty high. Weapons were getting upgraded, the cutter was maxed out, stasis had additional charges, I was feeling good even though I knew that the worst was still yet to come. Then it was time for one of my favorite parts of Dead Space 2, revisiting the original nightmare that is the USG Ishimura. And I gotta say, walking through this ship again is such a tempo change, and for a second, I was really appreciative of the game and how well it was written and designed. Until I ran out of ammo fighting these two brutes, followed by an armada of enemies, of which almost took me out and definitely depleted the rest of my ammo reserves. Then after walking through every 14-year-old's bedroom under a black light, yep, that is definitely my TV afterwards. Taking out some babies that were questionably far from daycare, solving a laser puzzle that revealed how directionally challenged I am. I pushed it the wrong way. It was time to make another massive decision. The third and final save of the game. I think we can do it. You died many times on this part. I'm gonna do it. You see, during this segment of the game, you stand on top of a massive excavating tractor while Ellie pilots it during a massive onslaught of enemies shooting at you from a distance and necromorphs climbing aboard. A perfect recipe for Isaac getting Eiffel Towered and sent back to the last save. So I made a very logical decision and placed my final save here due to the fact that I had accrued a ton of credits, nodes for upgrades, and even got a new suit, which was completely off the drip charts. And with that decision, we were on to the home stretch of the achievement with only 3 chapters remaining. Also, Ellie got her eye stabbed out. Forgot to make that joke come full circle. Now, full transparency, the excavator portion of this game killed me a ton back when I played this game in 2011, and is the sole reason I have horrible memories trying to get past it, and that was on Zealot mode, which is arguably just as hard as this difficulty, you just get to save more. But I surprised myself and chat and got past it without any major scares. But we weren't out of the woods yet, because directly following this segment is another onslaught of enemies, of which also went by without a hitch, and I was feeling really good. Well. Your little ambush didn't work. But, once again, I was also well aware of what was to come, and all of it could be game ending. We started our home stretch by swerving some people who were trying to use my brain to make more markers, ultimately making more necromorphs, then immediately released an armada of enemies upon them, and that chaos that ensued painted that room the loveliest shade of red. Then that was immediately followed by me having a moment where I got so lost in the sauce trying to survive that I didn't realize I almost died. I was in murder mode so hard that I completely missed the fact that I was literally hanging on by a thread and only realized it after everything was already dead. I almost died. I was so focused on murder that I didn't notice that my health was on the last bar. I would have been so confused if I died. I just got so lucky right now. Holy crap. Next was a laser room where markers are crafted, which requires you to use stasis to slow the arm's rotation and give you enough time to leapfrog to the next room, of which needs to be done a few times, and each portion sends or surprises you with a few unwanted guests to keep you on your toes. And traditionally, after having such near-death experiences, the game lets you off for a tiny portion of time. However, this is Dead Space. Here we like to cause just as much emotional damage as mental damage to ensure complete psychological shutdown. Okay. Enter Red Room, where enemies are plentiful and ammo is not. For some reason, I recall this room, and they send an unnecessary amount of enemies at me in this room. Then that encounter was promptly followed by the world's spongiest brute fight, and it was finally time for the most dreaded part of the run, the eyeball poke. And the reason this part is so dreaded is because if you miss, you die. Alright, this is a huge part right here, guys. He says, yeah, stab the eyeball, woo! Yes. Luckily though, that was not the case for me, but all was not fine and dandy after completing this, because now we must seamlessly slide into the next hardest part of the game, a chase segment where a special enemy that cannot be killed follows you as you try to make your escape. forgot how much ammo I bought. But surprisingly, this chase segment did not give me too much problems, and after navigating my way through a few close encounters, it was finally time for the final boss fight of the game with my demon ex-girlfriend. And this part is actually not even that bad. You get swarmed by some younglings while she slowly walks toward you, and after dealing enough damage to her, reveals the heart of the marker, allowing you to destroy it. You just need to ensure that Nicole doesn't touch you. That's right, everybody. I managed to make it past all of the parts that worried me the most and managed to mess it up at the very end, resulting in a near 2 hours lost time. And this right here is where it got to me, guys. I literally decided that I was calling it quits. I was too beaten, too ashamed. I just couldn't go on it. Nah, I'm just kidding. I didn't let it get to me too much. I sulked for a few moments, but ultimately I rallied and we got right back at it. And since we got so far with little difficulty, I decided to speed through it this time. However, even though I was able to rally and be in good spirits, being that close to completing the game, I fell victim to my own hubris, and this happened. And as you could probably tell by my reaction, I was a little less than thrilled. And I got no words. But I refused to let it get to me. The end was literally in sight, so we ran it back and we ran it hard. Past the Necromorph lab, past the lasers, cleared the eyeball poker, outplayed the regenerator, and it was finally time for round 2 with Nicole. Nicole, I forgot you can't take your health into that battle, and I almost got. And finally, all that was left to do was to make my valiant escape with Ellie and try not to get hit with any debris on the way out. Get me out of here! Get me out! And thus I concluded my run for the hard to the core achievement in Dead Space 2. However, you might have noticed that the achievement didn't pop up, and that is actually because I unlocked this achievement 13 years ago. But this was one of the coolest horror game achievements I had ever gone for, so going forward again after not playing this game for so long felt really good. And to be completely honest, this game aged amazingly. It felt as good as the remake that came out just last year in 2023. So if you've never played Dead Space 2, I assure you this game stands the test of time. But the next achievement I plan to unlock, I assure you I've never gone for, and I'm not even sure I'm going to get it. So if you made it this far into the video, consider subscribing so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching, everybody.